and generation after generation was being born into a life of gunfire and strife. While the advance of the Sri Lankan army was steady and relentless, the LTTE resorted to ingenious defenses. They cleared vast jungle stretches to create fields of fire, constructing 3-meter-high ditch-compound fortifications where the whole frontage was laced with booby traps, anti-personnel and anti-tank mines. The largest of the LTTE's ditch-compound constructions were a 22-kilometer stretch from Nachikura to Akkarayankulam and a 12-kilometer-long ditch compound ring defending Kilinochchi. In January 2008, the Vanni operation entered a decisive stage. The LTTE was forced to simultaneously defend 4 strategically vital approaches, with each division having a broader strategic objective. The 57th Division's main goal was the capture of Kilinochchi, the de facto LTTE capital. The 58th Division focused on sealing the northwest coastline and opening a direct road link to the Jaffna Peninsula. Attempts, meanwhile, were made by the LTTE to enter the Mullatif jungles. Anticipating such a move, 1 infantry division and 4 special forces squadrons were deployed behind task forces 2, 3 and 4 as strategic reserves to counter LTTE penetrations. And the 59th Division set its objectives on sealing the northeastern coastline from Valioya and to capture Pudukudiruppu, the LTTE command and logistical headquarters. Finally, the 53rd and 55th Divisions, which had previously garrisoned the Jaffna Peninsula, forced the LTTE to commit forces to prevent a breakthrough on its northern frontage. In a desperate bid, the LTTE now pressed into service tens of thousands of civilians, children and adults, as it witnessed increasing numbers of LTTE field commanders and veteran guerrillas killed in action. The final confrontation became the opportunity for one of the world's largest hostage crisis and humanitarian effort. As the LTTE's hold began to shrink, they resorted to detain over 290,000 civilians as human shields. Throughout the confrontation, the army was clear in its strategy to minimize the loss of human life, secure the release of the hostages, and capture the LTTE's top-rung leadership. The armed forces responded to the desperate civilians, providing escapees with their own food rations, assisting mothers in labor, providing first aid to injured civilians, and securing those who were abandoned in the fight for freedom. The IDPs, as they came to be known, were the worst victims of the war. Used as human shields by the LTTE, they were a major concern to the forces. Considering the high civilian population mingling with the LTTE, the army limited its firepower and avoided the use of heavy weaponry to prevent civilian casualties. On the instructions of President Mahinda Rajapaksa, the military initiated action to accelerate the release of the IDPs caught up in the confrontation, minimizing human loss. Medicines, food, and essential items made their way to the civilians, who opted for help from the government forces. The climax of the siege came when the LTTE leadership made a furtive bid to escape, and as their escort guards engaged the army, a firefight ensued that brought the 3-decade-old war to a close. On the morning of May 19, 2009, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Rajapaksa, in a brief address to the nation announced the end of the war. A gripping saga in the history of the nation had finally come to an end, and the teardrop in the Indian Ocean could now shed tears of joy. The nation erupted with joyous celebration, not because of any one side's victory, but the fact that peace had finally dawned. On the 19th of May 2009, as the guns fell silent, the responsibility on the government tripled. The Sri Lanka Army, together with the Air Force, Navy, Civil Defence Force and Police, had effectively tackled the supposedly invincible LTTE, becoming the world's most coveted fighting force. In the midst of the euphoria, the IDPs were not forgotten. Aid was flown in from the south, and medical help and essential items were provided solely by the government. Addressing the issue of IDPs, rehabilitating the captured and the surrendered LTD cadres, providing shelter, education and livelihood for the IDPs were the impending challenges. The government, however, faced them with courage. 295,873 were internally displaced as the war escalated, and they were temporarily harbored in 15 IDP centers island-wide, and as at today, 228,264 persons have returned to their former places of dwelling. 5,903 have been rehabilitated by 31st May 2011. And many of them have been exposed to vocational training and English language. And they've been incorporated into civil society. As mine clearing is still underway with the support of the UN, houses have been constructed and schools have recommenced their academic programs. Since the conclusion of the war, not even a single violent incident had been reported from across the country. Ever since then, the entire country has been free of violence, and a peaceful environment has prevailed. Now every single person can look forward to and live in lasting peace and harmony.